Hi, I'm going to be analyzing loneliness found within the story of Mice and Men by John Steinbeck. In the background, I'll be doing digital art conveying the loneliness of each character within the book, starting from Curly's wife, Crooks, Candy, and his dog, Curly himself, Slim, and last but not least, best dude friends George and Lenny. There's no particular reason why I'm ordering the characters this way, but I guess you could say I'm going from most obvious to least obvious in terms of character interpretation. Mrs. Green, my script isn't in MLA format and is definitely not formally written in this video, so please check the description because I have a Google Doc that has the proper formatting, so be gentle on the grading, please. I'll be putting captions up because I speak a little too quickly, as you can tell sometimes, and I slur my words when I speak for too long, and I'm recording on the inferior iPhone. So my sound quality sounds like I'm sitting on it. So I'll put some, I guess, piano music in the back. Yeah, let's hope it drowns out that audio quality. Mrs. Green, please be gentle and excuse my inability to speak like a normal person. As you can probably tell, I do not do it often. I just forgot that I wanted to point out a few things before my intro. Okay, so first off, I'm not watching my speed painting while I'm talking right now. So what I'm saying, and according to the video, it might be a little bit different. Like, I could be talking about Curly, for example, and then I'm like drawing Slim. It might be a little bit behind. I'll try my best to edit it so it's happening on time with the video. So yeah, I hope that's okay. Of Mice and Men is a novel written by John Steinbeck in the late 1930s. I'm pretty sure most of your guys' English teachers have already told you this, but Steinbeck wrote the novel around the time of the Great Depression and the Dust Bowl. These two events combined to make the United States into the saddest state it's ever been in, with almost everyone left with no cash in their pockets and searching for a job. Money lost its value in the Great Depression, and in hand with the Dust Bowl whipping out horrible storms enough to choke a person to death in the central U.S., led people to go west and search for jobs, leaving their agricultural businesses behind. Leaving family for a better future, finding it hard to provide for even one person to survive. Heck, why would you even consider helping your friends out? The struggles that came with the Great Depression put U.S. workers into a situation that required them to live for themselves. John Steinbeck writes of these troubles into the characters of his novel, from the son of the ranch boss's wife, to the stable buck segregated from society, going to an old man named Candy, whose only companion is a shriveled old dog, then to the ranch boss's son, Curly, to a well-mannered skinner named Slim, to finally good pals, George and Lenny, who the only people they have in the entire world is each other. One form of loneliness presented in the novel is in the form of the ranch boss's son's wife. She has a constant need of attention from others, flirting with other men to get a reaction out of them, despite having her own husband. Because of this, workers often find her husband running around the ranch, threatening those he thinks are having relations with his wife. Most workers know to stay clear of interaction with her because, if they do, they'll find themselves at the hand of Curly. In turn, his wife gets lonely. No one talks to her in fear of being berated by Curly. Because of how women were perceived back then, they expected her to stay in her house waiting for Curly to come home each day. Curly's wife dreads this, telling Lenny during their short talk, "I get lonely. You can talk to other people, but I can't talk to nobody but Curly. How do you like not to talk to anybody?" Steinbeck 87. She's isolated from the people around her because how she goes around with men, her role in society, and because she has a husband with his eyes on her at all times. Right next to Curly's wife is the stable buck Crooks. Like Curly's wife, not only is he isolated by the people on the ranch, he's isolated by society in general. Being a colored man wasn't any better in the late 1800s, and it sure as heck wasn't any better in the 1930s. Being left alone to tend to himself because he was a black man left Crooks craving for any attention. However, he held this loneliness to himself to show bitterness to those who left him out. This understandable saltiness is shown when Lenny attempts to get into Crooks' room. Crooks said sharply, "You got no right to come in my room. This here's my room. Nobody got any right in here but me." Steinbeck 68. Others disregard him, so he expects the right to disregard them too. However, Lenny's childlike charm gets the better of Crooks, and he lets him wander into his room anyway, telling Lenny his life story as if he'd never get this chance to tell it ever again. Old Man Candy's loneliness is a different kind of loneliness. Candy may be a senior, but he's well respected enough on the ranch. Compared to Curly's wife, or say Crooks, he has many people to talk to. He welcomes new workers onto the ranch and has a dog companion. However, all of this gets taken away from him when another ranch worker, Carlson, offers to shoot his dog because he believes it hurts his dog more to live when he's so old. Candy, understandably reluctant, asks if the task could wait until tomorrow. With the urges of Slim, however, tomorrow never came for the dog, and Candy agrees for Carlson to gun him down. This is Candy's turning point, where he really does become alone in the world. He doesn't have anyone close to him. He has no family. He has nothing. Nothing to go back to. His dog was the only thing left that mattered to him. He tells George miserably, "You seen what they did to my dog tonight? When they canned me here, I wish someone would just shoot me. But they won't do anything like that. I won't have no place to go, and I can't get no more jobs." Steinbeck 60. The only thing that's apparent to Candy is that he's still usable, and that's the only thing that's keeping him alive now. He has no one to live for. No family, no close friends, and now, no dog. As it turns out, the ranch's Skinner Slim and the Vaseline hand, helicopter husband himself, Curly, share similarities in their loneliness. Being one of the ranch's best skinners, Slim has to have a good appearance in front of others. This includes being polite to Curly's wife, too. And unluckily for Slim, Curly sees this and he gets all up on him, accusing him of getting handy with his wife, which he very wrongfully accuses him of. He doesn't get too friendly with others, because then the boss of the ranch might call him out as easing up on workers. Then there's Curly, mind you, the boss's son, keeping an eye out for him to make sure that Slim and his wife are not having any relations. With these two pressures, Slim acts as polite as he can without getting too friendly with anyone. With the events of the Great Depression, he can't afford to lose his best job. Curly, on the other hand, is distanced from others a bit differently. Curly has a Napoleon complex, which is the aggression towards those in bigger stature compared to the aggressor. Being a fun-sized Asian chick myself, I understand the idea that Curly would like to show others what he's made of, but he's making a fool of himself with the way he does it. Curly finds that he needs to compensate for his below-average stature. He picks on Slim and other bigger, taller ranch workers, including Lenny, to boost his ego. The thing that's similar between him and Slim is that he creates his own loneliness, just as Slim does. But unlike Slim, who intentionally pushes people away, Candy distances himself with his personality. Candy puts it into words well, saying that it seems like Curly ain't giving nobody a chance. Steinbeck 27. Ending it off with the two protagonists, Lenny and George express loneliness in pretty complex ways. Being mentally handicapped, especially at an age in the late 20s to around early 30s like Lenny is, it's pretty obvious that it's hard to make connections with others. In the 1930s, mental retardation was not something to be helped. It was something to hide and be ashamed of. George is seen trying to hide Lenny's conditions, giving quick explanations as to why Lenny acts the way he does, most notable being kicked in the head by a horse. Lenny seems to find himself in hot water quite often, and George is always there to cover him up for it, never giving Lenny a chance to establish his own connections and reasons, even when Lenny hasn't even done anything wrong. Apparently, none of this stuff even matters to Lenny, though, because God bless him, he's blissfully unaware of his own conditions, and would rather dream about his red, blue, and green rabbits. Poor George, on the other hand, suffers loneliness in two ways. Lenny's mental handicap is especially hard for George, as much as it is for Lenny. He has to constantly be on his toes, keeping Lenny from doing not-so-smart stuff, and when Lenny does do something dumb, the two of them have to run off and leave past connections behind. Jobs, acquaintances, left behind because Lenny did something that ruined their reputation permanently. Being able to find work as an unemployed American during the Great Depression was a godsend and hard to come by. George constantly has to renew these things like this. Now, the last of George's loneliness is quite clear in the ending of the novel. George, at this point of the story, never has experienced the kind of isolation that, say, Crooks and Candy had. He's always had someone next to him the entire time. Keep in mind that the reason no one traveled together during these times was because it was so hard to provide for yourself. Like just finding scrap food or place to work, much less providing all of this for another person. Yeah, Lenny might have annoyed the hell out of George, but George explains his relationship with Lenny to Slim so perfectly. But you get used to going around with the guy, and you can't get rid of him. Steinbeck 41. George, as much of a bully he occasionally was to Lenny, was a jerk with a heart of gold, and loved Lenny, and genuinely enjoyed his company. They even had their own dream, just the two of them, owning a piece of land they shared and living happily off of it. But it all came crashing down when Lenny pulled accidental murder on Curly's wife. The dream that George and Lenny ranted about with Candy and eventually Crooks crumbled. There was no longer a dream. It couldn't come true if Lenny wasn't in it. Finding Curly's wife dead in the barn, George reaffirms this with Candy. I think I knowed from the very first. I think I knowed we'd never do her. He used to like to hear about it so much that I got thinking maybe we would. Steinbeck 94. George could have just worked at the ranch for one more month to get the $50 worth of Lenny's work to buy that piece of land with Candy. But he didn't. It wouldn't be the same without Lenny. This realization is when George really ends up being alone in the world. He has no one close to share that American dream with anymore. No one could fit the gap that Lenny left behind. So that was my loneliness essay on Of Mice and Men. My reading wasn't the best, honestly. I feel like I could have done better. But honestly, I'm pretty lazy and it's late at night. I've been editing this video for like, what? So since 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 now. So that's like 6 hours of waiting for the video to download and then editing the audio in and changing the speeds so what happened on screen fit the audio. I'm tired, so yeah. I hope you enjoyed, and I hope this was helpful to any students who are doing the same topic as me in the future. So now I'll just change the BG to something. You know what? Let's do the Of Mice and Men soundtrack. I'll just change it to the ending credits theme for Of Mice and Men for the last like 1 minute and 25 seconds.